express bike review and going back to the future again. I did that in a previous video, but this time it's personal because this bike reminds me of my very first mountain bike, which was a Trek 4300. Recently, I was talking with Schwinn about some of their models, and this came up. This is the Standpoint. It's available at Dick's Sporting Goods, and you can see this is a Schwinn signature, and that's a whole different level of Schwinn. You didn't know they have different lines. The signature line, it's a step up. We're definitely kind of getting into the bike shop realm here, you can see, with this quality frame. But this reminds me so much of my old 4300 that nostalgia kicked in. I said, please let me have a look at this bike. Even though by modern standards, you know, it's kind of some old school equipment. But I had so much fun out here years ago, riding with that 4300, I mean for years and years, that I really wanted to give this a go and see how close to it is. And I'm going to go over the components now. I'm going to put the specs on screen because of course I can't measure out here on the trail, and I just unboxed this and got it going. So let me just go through everything real fast. This has wide bars. Again, the measurement will be on the screen. They are 31.8 diameter, I see. These do have one difference up top, at least, versus the old Trek. See the half slip-on grips here, and the twist shifter. You know my opinions about these on mountain bikes, but back in the day, they were a lot more acceptable than at least I view them today. But my old Trek had Shimano Easy Fires. These are Shimano, they're just Revo shift, and it's a 7-speed here on the right, a 3-speed friction on the left. This one on the right's indexed. Yeah. A little difference there. That is the bars, and of course the brake levers. We see those. This doesn't have disc brakes, it's rim brakes. I'll talk about those in just a minute. First, let's look at the stem. Not short, not long, but still a mountain bike stem for the threadless headset. You can see there this straight steerer tube. Again, kind of going back to the future, or at least back to nostalgia. Now let me talk about this fork, and I have a couple of things to say about this. First and foremost, I didn't expect this to have the same caliber fork as my old, I think it was an in-sync fork that came on that 4300. But this fork, in the pictures, there was a higher tier fork than this. It was still Schwinn branded, but it had chrome stanchions and so on. But this, we know this fork, this travel, I'm guessing 60 millimeter, we'll know if I'm right by what's on screen. But I mean, look at this. This does look like a big box fork, the big box that we're used to. So that is, well, it is what it is. I would have preferred to have the fork that was pictured, but we'll run with this, see how it does. Here's the rim brakes, exactly like my old 4300 had. As a matter of fact, years and years ago when I was riding out on, well, I think it wasn't far from here, kind of down that way, I ran across two bikers that came from California to ride Wildwood. They'd heard of it, and this is back when most local people didn't even know this was here. And that was where I first encountered bike snobbery. I didn't even know it was a thing. They were looking at my Trek 4300, and I remember them going, ooh, are those tubeless wheels? And at the time, I didn't even take it as an offense. I didn't even know. I was just riding my new bike. They were talking about, oh, is that tubeless wheels? Is that disc brake ready? Blah, blah, blah. And now looking back, I know they were kind of making fun of me. But later that same day, on the other side of Wildwood, I actually outrode them on my little 4300. So I guess I earned their respect. But rim brakes, you know, they do work. They do work. They did mysteriously quit working when disc brakes came to be. That's the brakes. These are the wheels with their silver. This looks exactly, just put a Bontrager sticker down here somewhere and this would look exactly like the wheels on my old Trek. There's a look at the hubs. Again, big box-ish, but slightly a step up because it's a Schwinn signature. Here's the tires. Very similar tread to the old Bontragers that I had. These though, 27.5. My old Trek was a 26er. Those are dear to my heart, 26. I just really feel at home on these trails on a 26. But in modern versions or modern times, 27.5 is my sweet spot. And these particular tires, 27.5 by 2.0, I don't even know where it is on the tire there. But they're 2.0 wide. They have a nice little beefy look to them. Now let's look at the drivetrain, and this also brings back memories. Not the Schwinn pedals, these are the usual Schwinn pedals, but these crank arms, alloy crank arms, these are pro wheel. So is this crank set, this 3x. That was the way everything was back then, or at least all the bikes that I had access to were all 3x. And this front derailleur, I thought the specs said this was a Shimano, but I don't see any branding, so I'll just assume that it's an unbranded Shimano or an OEM product. Yeah, that's the front half of this 3x. 3x7. Now, I had a 3x8 that I cut my teeth on. The Tourney, we all know this Shimano Tourney. Now, my 4300 had an Acero, which is just one step up from a Tourney, but it also had a cassette. This is a freewheel. Our usual freewheel. But I want to note here, there is a replaceable derailleur hanger, though the rear wheel, you can see that's bolt-on, not quick release. Showed the front brake, I should probably show the rear too. Now this is branded power. I don't know if you can see it over there. It is branded power, but these arms, they're well machined. I mean, this is a step up from the rim brakes that we usually see on what is technically big box. Now I need to talk about big box. And Dick's Sporting Goods, technically they are a big box store, but they have a bike section, as you can see again, Schwinn signature. Their bike section, they have trained assemblers. They actually do the assembling. They sell sized frames. I think everything they sell is a sized frame. This a medium. We'll talk about sizing in just a second. And they will help you get the proper bike fitment. They're trained in all that. Now your mileage may vary from store to store with how good the quality is as far as the assembly and the training and all that. But I hear good things about many stores. So Dick's Sporting Goods, kind of local bike shop experience at a slight discount, I would say. So now let's talk about this frame. This is an aluminum frame, and you can see the welding. And this is quality stuff. This is definitely Schwinn signature, that step up. And this frame is a medium frame, and I'll put the sizing on the screen. These come in, I believe, 3 sizes, and I saw on their website there's 2 group set options. There's the Shimano, which we just looked at. There's also a micro shift, so I'd be curious to see what that is. But this sizing, this is 1 inch smaller than my old 4300, but because this is 27.5, kind of puts me at roughly the same positioning. Even the ergonomics up here, all the geometry, I'll make my measurements and I'll put the specs down in the description. But sitting on this, the reach, everything, it feels so familiar, just slightly different because of the 27.5 wheels. It's almost like, I'll say this is modern nostalgia as far as the ride. And what I mean by that is if you've ever had your old car, like my first car was a VW Beetle, an old VW Beetle. And I have fond memories of that car, but not too long ago, I was able to drive one, and you know, riding around in it, or driving it, now as an adult, it was not the memories that I remembered. It was a lot more crude than I remember. So this is kind of my nostalgia memory. The ride on this makes me feel like I remember the 4300 riding, though it's just, I guess, modern enough with the 27.5 and that being my favorite wheel size that I think that makes the difference. But yeah, this is definitely close to it, at least in my mind. I think probably the closest that you're going to get. I do wish that it did have that fork that was pictured, because this one bottoms up as a big box fork. I've had this out on the trail. I've been riding it. I'm going to ride it a little bit more, though I do need to cover here the last components. This is a quick release seat post clamp with a budget seat post. I'm pretty sure that's steel. I'll stick a magnet to that. It's 27.2 by 200. This saddle, not bad looking. It has a relief groove, and I rode up the trail seated on this bike for the most part, and it was pretty comfortable seated riding it up. Let's look again at this frame. Now, I do want to mention too about this frame. Sized frames, I've already talked about that. The Schwinn limited lifetime warranty, the good welds, the nice quality, and these graphics. Well, first the tube. This is kind of a triangle with a rounded bottom. And all these graphics, this is a matte or a satin navy and orange graphics. You can see up top here. They look good. There's the Schwinn star. However, I want to talk about the internal cable routing. Back when I got my Trek 4300, it was new old stock. It was, I believe, 2 years old. And it had outer or external cable routing kind of on the side a bit, and it ran. This had internal, which the newer models at that time had. Internal cable routing, but I couldn't justify the $200 extra for that. And also here's the Standpoint branding, partially obscured by one of the two reflectors. I don't know why they did that. I guess safety first. There's the Schwinn signature. But that internal cable routing, that was brand new back then, or at least to me. It was brand new, and clearly within a couple of years on that 4300, so it's nice to see it here. This is kind of like what I could have got. Here's another look at it. You can see there are two cables going into one port. Even there it comes out. Yeah, nice looking frame. Here's the bottom bracket if you want to take a look at that. There you go. That is the Schwinn Standpoint. I'm curious of the interest. So comment below with what you think about this bike. It was, if I remember properly this morning, $449.99. But again, you're paying when you go to Dick's Sporting Goods for, in this case, the signature Schwinn. So a little better quality on all these components. And also the assembly, the setup, and the sizing that will help you get proper fitment on a bike and so on. That's the Standpoint. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you found it informative or maybe even entertaining. Thanks for watching KevCentral, and have a great day.